Hey guys, Tina here and welcome to week 2 of my weekly updates. I managed to have a pretty great week last week, despite the fact that I was not in the reading mood at the beginning of it, but I got out of that mood and I just flew through some books and I will talk about them right now. So the first book that I finished this year is Rebel of the Sands by Edwin Hamilton. This is book 1 in a trilogy and it tells the story of Amani who lives in this small desert town where everybody knows everyone and she knows that there's no future for her there, at least not the one that she would like. And she decides to get away and she meets a stranger and joins him across the desert. That's all I'm gonna say regarding the synopsis. Regarding the book though, it was not my favorite. It was okay, but it just lacked something. Amani as a character was great. She was really, into action. She was really strong and rebellious and a fighter, and I loved that. I did enjoy the world building, it reminded me of the Wild Wild West, but the culture is more Middle Eastern, which was great because there's a lot of that mythology in there, and I really like that. But despite that, there was just some spark missing that, I would say that I really loved it. So, if you want to check on Goodreads, I gave it 3 stars. So it was an okay book, but not my favorite. And I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to continue on with the series because there's so many books that I do want to read, a lot more than this one. Well, the continuation of this one. So, yeah, conflicted here, but we will see when the second one comes out and I will have the option of actually saying yes or no to it. The next book that I finished is Look Who's Back by Timur Fermes. This is a book in which Hitler comes back. It's 2011 and he wakes up somewhere in the middle of Berlin, not realizing that time has passed since, whatever happened that he remembers last. And he wakes up in this new world and he soon realizes that, that's not his world and things have changed. And it was an enjoyable read. It was not one that I loved again. It's a book that is sort of funny, but all that humor doesn't take away from what he did during the World War II and before it. Hitler is still Hitler. He, has not changed. He's not, a redeemed character at all. The humorous parts come from him trying to figure this world out, all the technology. He's still obsessed with the Aryan race, when he discovers internet or the mouse, computer mouse. He's really excited about all that the German people can invent, and so he's pretty much Hitler. Not that's changed. The rest of the humor comes from the fact that other people don't realize that he is the real Hitler. They think that he is a guy, an actor playing Hitler, and that he's so immersed into his role that he doesn't actually ever drop from it. And that's where a lot of miscommunications and misunderstandings come from, and that's where the humor comes from. It's not that Hitler himself is that funny at all, because he's Hitler. But aside from that, it was an enjoyable read. As I said, it's not my favorite. I also watched the movie of Look Who's Back, and the film was enjoyable as well. It's been a long time since I watched a German movie, and it was interesting, but yes, I enjoyed it as well. So the next book that I finished is Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. This is book 1 in his Reckoners trilogy, which is a young adult sci-fi series, and it tells the story of David, who lives in a world where calamity happened, and this means that some people got superpowers, and sadly they didn't turn into heroes but into villains. And they have taken over the world, and there's a group called the Reckoners that is fighting them, and David wants to join them, which is what we see at the beginning of the book. The reason that he wants to join them is the fact that he wants to get rid of Steelheart, who has taken over Chicago, which is now called New Chicago. And Steelheart, when he was 10 years old, Steelheart killed his father and he wants revenge. And he does have a bit of information about Steelheart that the Reckoners don't have, and the fact is that he has seen Steelheart bleed. And he's supposed to be invincible, and the fact that he can bleed means that he is also not immortal, which is how he gets into this group, basically. This book was a really great read. Once I got past those few first chapters that were sort of slow for me, but once I got immersed into this world and the story, it was just great. As Brandon Sanderson comes up with these ideas and things that are really great, I really loved all these superpowers. I thought they were quite different from anything that I have read before. Not that I have read a lot of this kind of books, but still, I really enjoyed that. I could see some of the tidbits and things that he was foreshadowing, and you know, I sort of figured some things out, but not exactly, which was still fun because, you know, I did try for once and I really loved it. David as a character was really funny and interesting, sort of nerdy and awkward, and really a joy to read from his perspective. And I really enjoyed this book, which is why I continued on with it, with the series, and I picked up Mythosis, which is a novella that comes between Steelheart and Firefight, which is book 2 in the series. This is a short story, 44 pages long, and it tells of another epic that David has to deal with, and it was a joy to read and I really loved it. So yes, a great week in all. Now, despite having a really great week last week, I, you know, do not want to be too ambitious, so I only picked well, 3 books, but one it's not going to be just for this week, it's going to be till the rest of the month. But the first book that I want to read is Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by J.K. Rowling. This is a screenplay to the movie that I already saw and loved, and I decided that this is going to be, you know, a quick read, and I definitely, well, will be reading this because, you know, it doesn't take long to read this one. The priority for this week will be Truth Witch by Susan Dennard, which is book 1 in her series. I read it last year, and it tells the story of Savi and Iseult, who are witches, and they usually, you know, sort of get into trouble, but this time the trouble is a bit more serious and they have to run. And I really enjoyed this book when I read it last year, but this time I have to reread it because Wind Witch book 2 is already making its way to me, and well, I have to sort of re-immerse myself into this world, and yes, that's what I plan to do this week. So the last book that I'm gonna mention here is a book that I do not expect to finish this week at all. I'm gonna take my time with it and hopefully finish it by the end of the month. It's The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, which is book 1 in his Wheel of Time series, which is 14 books long, and they're all enormous. This is over 800 pages long, and I have no clue what it's about. The only thing I know about the series is that Brandon Sanderson loves it, and he co-wrote the last 3 books in the series because Robert Jordan passed away. But yes, once I finish it, I will be letting you know what it's about and how I felt about it. So you are now very much updated to what's going on reading-wise in my life. I hope you enjoyed this video, and see you in my next one. Bye!